you're in.
Yay.
All live on YouTube, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone, welcome to the meeting. Thank you for coming along. In the absence of a chair and a deputy chair, and in terms of standing orders, the first item is to call for a nomination for a chairperson to chair the meeting. I have a nomination for Steve Chadwick to chair the meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So I'll hand the meeting over to Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell, and thanks for getting us organised today. So firstly, we'll accept the apologies for the meeting, and I have an apology for Mayor Tenby Powell, Councillor David Lowe, Mayor Malcolm Campbell, and Deputy Mayor Shona Brown. So do I have a mover for those apologies?
I so move.
Thank you. Second? Judy, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yeah. Aye. Thank you. And we note also we've got an apology from John Titmus, and he's going to be represented by the Regional Emergency Management Advisor, Jane Rowland, who's also from the National Emergency Management Agency. So Jane, I think you're speaking a little bit later. Thank you. Item 2 was the public forum. We've had nothing advised for the public forum. Item 3 was the acceptance of late items, and we have none advised. I think we've all just been under the pump in our own districts, actually managing the response and then the recovery. And the 4th item is declarations of conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? There appear to be none. Thank you. So we move now to a report on the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group, the Group Recovery Manager amendments. So at the request of the Chair of the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Coordinating Executive Group, the group is asked to endorse the appointment of Clinton Node, the Director of Emergency Management Bay of Plenty, as the Group Recovery Manager, and rescind the appointment of the current Group Recovery Manager and alternative Group Recovery Manager. So the recommendation, as I put it, well, I'll ask first for
quite happy to move one. Quite happy to move 1 and 2 recommendations.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Judy. Seconder. And 1 and 2, that we receive the report, and then we'll receive the report, and then we'll move 3. So, Clinton, do you want to speak to your report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I just want to highlight that we find ourselves in a position now with timings, with the retirement of the Group Recovery Manager, and currently with COVID, we're under a national transition notice for recovery. So that does mean there are certain emergency powers, and we just want to protect ourselves in this transition phase while we get a new recovery manager. So there's no intent for me to do this role full time. It's for me to look after the ship, so to speak, until we get the new person on board. And I'm sure Jane will add to that from a view from the national agency, but I've been requested to appoint me purely for looking after the COVID transition period.
Thank you. Thank you. Clinton. And Jane, I can't see you there, but do you want to add anything to Clinton's report?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd just like to support Clinton's appointment as the group recovery manager, but for the duration of COVID-19. I think it's really important that the Joint Committee acknowledges that it's not appropriate to have a group controller and a group recovery manager vested in one individual. It's a very high risk strategy and it makes you quite vulnerable. And so I think I understand why you would do this for this situation. It makes perfect sense, but I would urge you as a committee to revisit appointing a group recovery manager more substantively when that person is in position.
Thank you, Jane. Are there any questions? If you could just indicate with your hand up on the participants list. Are there any questions? My only question, Clinton, is when are you going about advertising straight away?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have interviewed, and I'm pleased to announce today I've had acceptance from an applicant. I'll do a formal announcement once the necessary paperwork's been formalised.
Oh, so this just covers us in transition.
Yes.
You're not caught for long.
Hopefully not. Hopefully this is a transition phase till the new person is onboarded and gets their feet on the ground. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Clinton. That makes it easier for us. Are there any further questions?
Sorry, through the chair, it's Jane Rowland from NEMA again. I wondered if you would consider amending the recommendation so that Clinton was appointed as the group recovery manager for the duration of COVID-19. Just a signal that you would be wanting to revisit this.
Yeah. So can you add that amendment into 3, please? Jane, that could be quite long.
Well, hopefully you'll have another person in position and you can rescind Clinton's appointment or at least make him alternate and have your substantive position in as your enduring group recovery manager.
Right. Great. There are no further questions, so I'm going to put the amended 3, recommendation 3, that we approve the appointment of the Bay of Plenty CDM Group Joint Committee of Clinton Noday as the Director of the Emergency Management Bay of Plenty as Group Recovery Manager for the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group for the period till the end of COVID, as defined under section 29(1) of the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act. I so move. Do I have a seconder? A seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful. All those in favour, please say aye.
No.
Aye, thank you. Clinton, do you want to give us a report of how you felt it all went? Well, we've got Jane here.
Yes, Madam Chair. We have, just to highlight, we do have a full joint committee meeting scheduled for the 26th of June, and we'll bring a more substantial overview for that meeting. But I can just flag that from my point of view, this has gone very well, especially in the Bay of Plenty. Firstly, from a health perspective, with the cases we've had, the low numbers and full recoveries, etc., we've done very well. But also from a specifically civil defence point of view, it's been fantastic seeing the group pull together and operate at the different levels. We've looked at where we can have efficiencies and streamline some of those systems, and it's just great to see everyone pull together. The other thing I want to highlight is in this period where we've gone through a new way of delivering services in terms of caring for communities, a broader scope, we've adjusted well, and it's great to see how many partnerships there came from through the community groups, the iwi, all pulled together, and it's really been really outstanding to see that sort of that come alive of our vision, which is a safe, strong of Bay Plenty together. So from my side, yes, I've been really pleased with the way it's gone.
Thank you, Clinton. And on the 26th, when we bring a fuller committee meeting, do you want to hear from each TLA and regional council about their welfare centre, or are you completely all over it? You're aware of it?
Yes, what we're trying to do is we'll capture the holistic view, including the specifics from the locals, the different TAs, what they've contributed. So we'll try and paint that picture of, in that initial summary phase, of how it went in the Bay of Plenty. We will be working with the locals to gather their information into that as well.
Brilliant. So we don't have to do that as mayors or chair.
No, I'm not foreseeing that. I'm foreseeing this report will cover all of us in one. Yep.
And then a section that the minister would be particularly interested in are lessons learned. I only say that because I met the welfare team when I came back in transition to level 2, and there were some quite profound lessons learned, I think, that need to be conveyed through to the minister too.
Yes,
Yeah.
most definitely, Madam Chair. The report we'll have on the 26th will be more of a summary of how things went.
Yes.
It won't have captured all the lessons, because we will be running an official debrief process with each local EOC and all the staff to capture those lessons into a post-event
Brilliant.
report. Yep.
And that will go to the National Centre.
Yes, affirmative. We always provide a copy
Brilliant.
of our report up to the National Emergency Management Agency. Yep.
We might want to speak to it, Clinton.
We may well.
Good, Jane. That's the Bay of Plenty way. Yeah. Does anyone else wish to add anything there? No. Well, thank you, Clinton, for that, and also for getting on with the appointment. So we move now to late items. Are there any late items? No, there appear to be none. Well, yes, Lynn.
Not a later item as such. May I just ask for a conversation around recovery as a not an issue as such, because I'm thinking that the success of what has happened caring for the communities was because of the incredibly well organised, and only speaking from my own district, the incredibly well organised social welfare organisations that we had who teamed together. And I'm really wanting to see that it's a locally led recovery program for exactly those same reasons, rather than regionally directed and without. To me, the success has been with the people on the ground knowing our own people. And I'm just wanting possibly to stimulate a discussion around that, that from the recovery phase of it, that continues to happen, knowing our own people, knowing who needs what, and actually really having a close finger on the pulse is what I'm trying to articulate rather badly here, and it being the foundation for our recovery program from that side of things.
So, Lynn, you're really talking about localism in the recovery phase.
Yes,
the
because
value of the link.
Yes.
Do you want that discussion
just wondering
now,
how,
or on the 26th? So we've got a
I suppose I would like some initial thoughts, if we have time to do that, Steve. That's all.
Yep. So with the will of the committee, does anyone else wish to add to Lynn's sentiments? I would only add that I've had calls, Lynn, and colleagues from mayors of the wider region, from other parts of the country, are very confused about is CDEM leading their economic recovery. And I made it very clear that you're confusing two issues, but linkages are valuable. So I don't know, Clinton, if you want to speak to that.
Yes, Madam Chair. As my understanding goes at the moment, is we are waiting on direction from central government where the mandate for this recovery will sit, given the size and complexity of COVID. expectations are at the moment that this will not be a civil defence led recovery effort, which also poses the question then, what is our role from a civil defence perspective? I just want to stress though that to me that's different from a local government perspective.
Yes.
So I know you sit there with two hats at the moment, and that's what we're trying to deconflict is exactly which way will this recovery go. And I'll defer to Jane shortly, because the feedback we've been getting from the National Emergency Management Agency is we are waiting on further direction from Cabinet as to where the recovery may or may not go. So Jane, would you like to add?
Yeah, thanks, Clinton. And through the chair, our understanding is the same, is that it would not be a NEMA-led recovery. That said, NEMA has been partnering quite closely with the local government response unit and understand the work that local authorities are doing in a recovery space. And again, echoing Clinton's point, that there is a challenge and a tension between what local government is delivering around recovery and what CDEM is delivering. So CDEM's role at this point is very much around transitioning those issues that have arisen out of the response into responsible agencies, and that does include to the Caring for Communities entity. Again, we're still awaiting a great deal of clarity on that ourselves, although we've worked quite closely with them during the responses. We're not so quite sure. Our role as an agency will probably cease over time as that transitions into the recovery phase. So yeah, we're in the same situation.
Yeah. Okay, good. Stuart.
Thank you. If I could just add to that discussion that Lynn has raised from a national perspective, it was very much part of last week, our conversation at National Council with Prime Minister and Cabinet about alignment and some of the risks that can evolve unless there is a clear understanding on who's doing what, when and how. And Lynn, it is, as you rightly say, it's generated from the community in the first instance. And I did explain to Minister Robson as an example that communities are well advanced in their own local economic recovery plans. And then it has to link into what the government stimulus plans will be. And they did get that, to be fair. And so there is some thinking going on to make sure that there's no crossover, there's no one stepping over other people's toes, shall we say, and that there'll be the best bang for the buck. But clearly it is locally driven. From the Regional Council's perspective, we discussed this yesterday when we adopted our annual plan. And that structure is well known, and the core of that is the TLAs and the communities, supported by their own economic development agencies, be they Priority 1, Toi EDA, RED, and Great Lakes Taupo, business and industry. So the trick's going to be how all this wells together to make sure that, as I said, resource isn't wasted, time's not wasted, and there's no duplication. And the last message from Minister Robson was very, very clear that bureaucracy has to get out of the way of this. They will not tolerate people navel gazing for months on end, trying to decide what they're going to do. So the pressure is on at the local level, at the regional level, and at the national level to get this underway quickly and coordinated.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for taking that through to the Minister. It sort of reiterates our sentiments. If we hadn't started a recovery plan at a local authority level, we're never going to recover. Should have started about 8 weeks ago while we were in the response phase. Looking forward. Anyway, Gary?
Yeah, I think we've just got to be a little careful. There's two roles here. There's the economic stimulus, and there's the social networks, and I'm with Lynn in this space, because we've got these little towns of Te Puke, Katikati, and they're all operating completely differently. But they're operating incredibly well. And Stuart's point, we've got to make sure the bureaucracy doesn't kill these little places. But also, I think we need to be mindful of some central stimulus where, you know, there's a lot of money being requested, and there's only a limited amount to go forward, and there's going to have to be some central common sense applied. If we can get that out of Wellington, that'd be good. To make sure that people aren't double dipping. Some of the things I've seen just frighten the hell out of me. And you know, when a council applies for wage subsidies out of the central government, we have got a big problem of credibility in local government.
But Gary, I'd argue that community boards, we've got some community board members that were worried about a perceived that they'd have to join a 20% wage cut and they'd have to apply for a wage subsidy to pay their rent. That's how, you know, tinderbox it was at that time. So
I think the point I was trying to make, that's the difference between the social end.
That's right.
And something, you know, up at the corporate end where, you know, we saw some really interesting applications and the money's not getting to the people that need it.
So that's the stuff that I think, Clinton, you know, when we've got the meeting on the 26th, there might be some fantastic lessons learned about, just as Judy knows, in disaster, the role of navigators, for example, picking your way through government agencies. You know, that's something that was our welfare team seemed to take up that role, picking between the different agencies and the different funds. So it might be quite a good section to actually bring forward and on the 26th.
Yes, Madam Chair, I fully support that, to have a further discussion, because recovery is on the cards now and we need to flag that. So I think what I'm hearing is everyone is working through trying to understand, as Councillor Crosby said, that there's understanding of who's doing what.
Yeah.
And so we don't duplicate, we don't step on toes. So happy to have that on the agenda as a further point.
Great. And my only question, Jane, was when we all joined on Friday afternoon for the emergency briefing, I felt like a bit of a tile on a wall with so many people there. I wasn't sure that I picked up anything of value other than, you know, feeling confident about what the National Centre was doing, both health and recovery wise. So that was quite interesting. You participate because you know you should as a leader, but you never once got a chance to say anything.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback. Steve, you raised a really good point. It was definitely a first for NEMA to be engaging with such a wide range of the audience, including, you know, elected representatives and chief executives at the same time. But we did feel that it was important just to have at least that level of connectedness. So I think it's valuable for us to look at other ways to explore that for the future.
And it seemed inappropriate to use the chat box with such a huge participant list, but there was value in it.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's really helpful. I think we would probably, if we were doing it again, we would work more closely with the group controllers to elicit questions beforehand, I think, so that we could at least, you know, minimise that having to use the chat box thing. But thank you for the feedback.
Well, we're going to be a lot better if there's ever a next time, heaven forbid. Lynn.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I actually relish the opportunity to see the national picture and actually get the small amount of valuable information from the experts that were put forward to talk to us. And it was all about maintaining the confidence in what was being done and being able to really relay that message to my district, and knowing that we were all on board in the right direction, you know, paddling that waka together. And even just for that to be included fortnightly was really good. And the speed of how things happened, I think, through everybody, the work that had to be done in that first couple of weeks was mind-boggling. And possibly my one ask would have been to have had it weekly for that first month, only because it was so new, but that probably would have been putting too much of a demand on an already overworked group, but I found it a very valuable part to be part of that, and I thank the Sarah and the organisation for putting that forward for us.
Well, that's nice to hear, Lynn, for Jane to convey back.
That's lovely, thank you.
Right, there appear to be no further questions.
Jude's got a hand up.
Oh, not on my list, she isn't. Okay, Jude.
Hi, sorry. All I wanted to mention was that I think many of the civil defence meetings I've been to over the last few years, we've kind of talked about the role of iwi and that they play. And I just want to say that at a community level, in our more isolated rural communities in particular, they really were the main providers of support for that community. And I just think that they stepped up. It was they didn't have to be asked. They automatically used their networks and their staff that they had, and a lot of the stuff was already happening. I was ringing around saying, have you got masks, have you got gloves, kind of thing, and they were already out there visiting, providing meals, standing up families that needed support. There was quite a lot of that happening. I just think that in going forward, it's just a good lesson to remember that they are there and very often better organised and ready to move at speed than other organisations. We're very grateful.
I think that's absolutely right, Judy. The Te Arawa response was way ahead of our community response. They started 2 weeks earlier, and they've now developed a mature database at hapu level. They've got the best database they've ever had in the country, in our area, and they're using it for all sorts of valuable lessons, really. So I don't know how they'll even linked in, because they're not part of our team. They are in our partnership, but we don't hear that story. They didn't even seek permission, they just started. And I thought that was quite funny, because I was a bit worried myself about food handling and gloves, and were you putting really essential items in there, or is this really going to be well received? They didn't wait to ask, they just went and did it in a very sophisticated way. So good observation, Judy. And I'm sorry, does anyone else have their hand up? No? Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks for getting the meeting organised. You can see that we do need to rally the troops sometimes for procedural issues, and well done, Clinton, and we look forward to the 26th. And thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Ka kite.
Thank you.